All right, next up, I would like to introduce you all to our next sponsor, Berkeley Patients Group, which is the longest-running dispensary in the United States. BPG pioneered the social service-based model for medical marijuana distribution nearly 20 years ago. Today, they are nationally recognized as leaders in the regulated cannabis market with operations in California, Nevada, and Oregon. And we have with us today BPG's COO, Sean Luse, who has been with the company for 11 years. He is an advocate, business leader, and an expert in the field of cannabis dispensary operations. He's also a partner and COO of New Leaf, a vertically integrated cannabis company with operations in Reno, Las Vegas, and Lake Tahoe. In Nevada, Sean is a member of the Nevada Dispensary Association and a founding member of the Nevada Cannabis Coalition. Through these roles, he has been intimately involved in shaping the laws and regulations that govern Nevada's legal cannabis industry. And so Sean will be joined by Troy Dayton of Arcview for a fireside chat. So please join me in welcoming them both to the Arcview stage.
Welcome to the Arcview stage, Sean.
Thank you, sir. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Wow. So Sean and I have been working together for like 20 years through SS Students for Sensible Drug Policy, and it's been amazing to see BPG just, you rise up within that organization, and then also to see it grow has just been amazing. And I think you were at the very first Arcview meeting.
We were at that small conference table in Khurshid's law office.
Khurshid's law office. So it's nice that it comes full circle and coming back. So let's start off with, I'm curious, how's it been going in California? First couple weeks of sales, what's it been like?
Yeah. I'd say the best way to describe it has been trying to get a cool drink of water out of a fire hose. We've been having a lot of action, a lot of customers through the door. It's definitely good. The thing that I think was good for us is that we've been deeply involved in the regulatory process in California for years now. So we were one of the first licenses that were made available, and so we were ready to launch 6 a.m. on January 1st. We had a ribbon cutting with the mayor and the state senator and city councilwoman. It was just a very festive environment,
Isn't there a Berkeley Patients Group Day
there
in
is.
Berkeley?
They did. Yeah, they named a day after us. They love us so much in Berkeley.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
What did you find that is expected, and what has been a surprise to you about the rollout?
Yeah. I think what was expected, I guess, by seeing the other rollouts that I've seen in Nevada markets and things like that is that it is just like, it's just like Christmas morning for marijuana consumers. They're just so excited, so happy, and so many new consumers. I think that's what's really interesting about this market is we really are bringing people into the new legal market. You've got people that maybe smoked in the 70s or something, haven't done it in 30 years. You've got people who have never consumed marijuana. And so the motivations and the reasons for these new customers come to us is really fascinating to me. I think what I've also been surprised by is how many quote-unquote adult use consumers are coming in for health and wellness issues. They're not going to get a doctor's note they never had. They didn't want to be on a list, but they definitely have a sore back or a bad knee that needs some ointment.
Yeah, how many people, it's amazing how many people think that there's like some list in California, right? That's kept them from the medical market, and now they're finally coming into these stores because they just didn't want to go through all the rigmarole to get it, and they walk in and they're like, wow, all these products.
Yeah, I know, and so that's fun and that's great. The challenge with that, though, is that these new consumers need a lot of education. There's a lot of questions. Transaction times are definitely longer than what we were used to experience, because you got to realize that the medical marijuana consumer is a very heavy user, typically, very committed connoisseurs. They know what they want. They know how they want it. They've got an opinion about every strain and every terpene. But these people are very different in things. So a lot of education and a lot of hand-holding is what we're doing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously California has a totally different regulatory structure than pretty much anywhere else, and is a lot of lines crossing on that. What regulations have been the hardest?
Yeah, well, I would say the hardest part was probably just the fact that we basically had 6 weeks' notice to become into compliance. Because of the way that the legislative session played out over the summer and the trailer bills that were passed that merged the medical and adult use markets, we had to scrap the draft regulations that were released in the beginning of the year, and new emergency regulations came out end of November, and by January 1, we had to be compliant. So a lot had to be done in terms of upgrading some infrastructure, moving around rooms and facilities to actually divide our distribution function from our retail function. A hell of a scramble to get there and be ready on January 1. I think there's certainly other interesting regulatory wrinkles in California. We've done a lot to improve them and work through them. If you look back at the first medical marijuana Regulation and Safety Act that was passed in Sacramento in 2015, it's gotten a lot better. There were so many restrictions on licenses, there was mandatory distribution, there was all these things that was just going to cripple the industry. And as an industry, we've worked together to fight back, change those laws, and it's getting a lot better. We still have a very wonky excise tax system where it's technically a retail excise tax, but it's paid by the wholesale distributor, which is very funny.
Yeah, let's talk about the pricing a little bit. The taxes, that's got to be, it's this little sticker shock.
Yeah, sticker shock is definitely the word for it, Troy. We've seen a lot of that. There's definitely a tax problem in California. There's no doubt about that. And I think we're just starting to sort of hear those voices emerge and really see some action. There is talk in the State House about running a bill to actually lower the state excise tax from 15% to 5%. Have an author on that.
Woo! People like that.
I know, right? That's
popular.
Good. But, I think actually the biggest problem with taxes in California isn't really at the state level. Because if you look at California state taxes, they're a little higher than a lot of the other legal markets, but they're not that high. But what's really out of control in California and what's driving these costs is the local taxes. These local governments are applying gross receipts taxes to every step of the supply chain. So if I sell a vapor pen out of our store in Berkeley, the cultivator was charged a 10% tax on their operations. Then they paid their state taxes on that harvest, $9.75 per ounce. Then they probably sent that to a manufacturer who then paid 10%. And then it goes to a testing lab who paid 10%. And then a distributor has to go to a distributor. They're going to pay a 10% tax. Then it goes to a retailer who also gets to pay a 10% tax. So you compound that all the way down the supply chain, and you're looking at a 85% effective tax rate or something. Right. So, but I think there is some hope out there. We actually have been working really hard with the local government in Berkeley. We've done a lot of lobbying. We've been engaged with them for years, and obviously when you have a day named after you, you get a little respect in City Hall. So we're working really hard, and there's actually an item on the Berkeley City Council agenda tonight, starting in just a couple hours, to lower that local tax. We feel confident we're at least going to cut it in half. We're optimistic that it might go down as much as 75% with tonight's meeting. So, we hope that can hopefully set off a whole movement of local governments realizing that, hey, we messed this up, we got greedy, let's pull back and let this industry thrive.
That's great. Thank you for that. That's super insightful. What I think is amazing is that despite these ridiculous taxes, there's still a line outside, right? Which means it's not a horrible time to be in retail in California. Can you speak a little bit to that? I think there's a perception out there, depending on who you talk to, that the real place to be in retail is in a state like Ohio or Florida or some restricted state. Right. And I'm wondering if you could just speak a little to what are the advantages of being a retailer in California, and then specifically, why BPG is in a unique position.
Yeah. So I think the California market, the Oregon market, I look at them very similarly. You're right. There are no state caps on these kinds of licenses, so that can create problems. But there's definitely plenty of good opportunities. think it really comes down to finding local rules that restrict licenses. I think it's really the quickest way to have a high-grossing 10, 15, $20 million a year store is to do something like Berkeley or Oakland, where Berkeley Patients Group and other people have benefited from this for years because you've got 3 licenses. Right. For instance, we just competed and won a single license that was issued by the city of Emeryville. And so when you have those local controls on licenses, you can still have those kind of market dynamics that just give you a big bite of the apple. Mm-hmm. And so that's, to me, I think one of the best ways to kind of counteract that.
Yep. So let's shift into a little bit about BPG. I mean, you guys are doing a capital raise. Mm-hmm. I'm curious if you could share a little bit about BPG's sales and foot traffic and, those kind of BPG by the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So we've been around since 1999, so 18 years of operation.
1999.
Yeah.
Wow.
Doing it before.
Wow. Wow. So you've been through all of the ups and downs.
Yeah, all the ups and downs. We got the scars to prove it.
Yeah.
If there's anything the federal government can do, they've tried to do it to us. And somehow we still survive. So resiliency. That's #1 trait, indeed. But by the numbers, at this point, in the store in Berkeley, we're seeing 800 to 1,000 people a day. We feel pretty confident that we'll be on track for about a $20 million a year there. Mm-hmm. In our retail footprint in Nevada, combined with those stores, it'll probably be more like $16 million this year. We're also expanding our cultivation and production capacity in Nevada to go online this year. So, I think we'll easily have $35 million in sales. Probably hit 50 at the end of the year. Next year, be trending in that direction. And then we've got some projects in the pipeline. That's what we want to do now, is because we really see a unique opportunity in California right now. Because there's been so many cities outside of your big liberal cities like the LAs, the San Franciscos, the Oaklands, the Berkeleys, so many cities that stayed on the sidelines all throughout the unregulated gray market. But now that we have proper state law and things are settled, all these cities are moving to issue licenses. And many of them are restricted competitive licenses. We're going to issue 2 in Santa Monica. We're going to do 3 in Hayward. These little things here and there. And so we've found some great success with that. With our history, our operations, all the documentation we have, the accolades from Congress people and mayors and police chiefs. We have an instant credibility when we go into these city halls and these meetings to compete for these permits. And we often win them. We've very rarely lost a permit race, and so. That's, I think, why we want to capitalize now and scoop up as big of a retail footprint as we can in California, because we feel like this is a once in a generational window opening where it's open now. It's not going to be that way as easy or as limited markets for this long.
Absolutely. You kind of just skipped over something that I think is really important. You said so humbly, $35 million to $50 million in annual revenue this year. That's impressive. And there are very few. I mean, I'm thinking there's got to be less than 10, nationwide that are at that revenue.
Yeah. I think you're probably right, Troy. I mean, like I said, we've been building these companies and these brands for years now, and we've really applied what we learned and what's worked in Berkeley, and now we're replicating that and growing.
Yeah, and then as far as this sort of hand-to-hand combat that happens at the local level for licenses, can you speak a little bit to kind of your political operation? Like, how do you go about that, and what is there to what gives you an advantage at that in that effort?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. So in the office, we call it Operation Charm and Disarm. So because we've had success going into very negative jurisdictions, NIMBY type atmospheres where never can't happen. It's going to ruin the whole town and things. And we've successfully put out those fires and got those permits issued. So for us, we employ a full-time government affairs department. We have lobbyists in every major government that we work with that we also retain to really help us guide our efforts and better communicate what's going on. And then, we get in there and we tell our story, and we tell it, and we tell it, and we listen to concerns, and we do what we can to either, adjust to meet those concerns, or really prove to them that their concerns are misguided and not real, by doing a show and tell, bringing a city council member or a mayor over to one of our existing operations and showing them around, showing them how well it runs and how nice it looks and things like that. It just goes a long time. And I think really, if you do the hard work and roll up your sleeves and go out in the community and have the tough public meetings where they yell at you and cuss and scream, but you stay cool, calm, and collected, and eventually they end up liking you. Because I think, and we've even heard this from the opposition before, is like, well, I sure as hell don't want a marijuana dispensary in my town, but if it's got to be anybody, I guess I'd rather have it be you guys, so fine.
Right on. And I imagine that part of your advantage is your orientation towards service, and in being involved in the community. I mean, BPG and Harborside and a few others in those early days really sort of pioneered that particular model. And I think newer entrants have come in and maybe just given lip service to that model, and it sounds like BPG's really stuck with that. Can you speak a little bit to some of that service orientation and how that plays out in winning licenses?
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a deep part of our ethos. It's in our DNA to really have a business that does good and does well and that gives back. And so we believe in that a lot. We're also not running a nonprofit charity, so we still keep a focus on the bottom line. But for instance, in part of our recent winning application, we had a dedicated community fund, of 1% of sales going to that, and then that is distributed to one particular charity that we chose, and then the rest goes to city council for them to give out as grants or things like that. And that's a way that we've gone from the old days where we hired massage therapists and gave massages and acupuncture and kind of ran our own free clinic as part of the dispensary, to now really making it more of a formal thing that we engage with the local government, actually create a structure and a fund around it, and those kind of community benefits and social benefits are what they're looking for. If they want to go through and give this license, they need to be able to go back to the community and say, no, this made the place better. It didn't just sell marijuana.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so talk a little bit about what you're planning to use the money for in sort of specifics, how much you're raising, and where's that all going to go, and how does it make a difference for making a bigger business? Yeah,
absolutely. So like I said earlier, right now we have a big focus this year on retail expansion, primarily California, but also Oregon. We really want to get that ramped up too. So we have two shovel-ready projects right now that I'll mention. We have an East Bay permit, Emeryville. Just won that singular permit. So in that case, we're raising $1 million to complete the build-out of the store and some operating capital to get the thing up and running. And doing that at a $5.5 million pre-money valuation. That store, we really have a very, very high hopes for that market. We believe, we're in a great location. If people are familiar, we're going to be right at 40th and San Pablo, in the heart of the commercial sector there. With all the big
I used to live
stores.
Like literally 4 blocks from there.
Nice, yeah. So the traffic count and the amount of shopping that goes on with all the big box stores right there and things is great. So we've got a wonderful facility, big parking. Really excited about that one. And then up in Portland, we've selected the suburb of Beaverton, home to Nike. Great, demos there and real great fundamentals. But what really attracted us is it's one of the few markets in Oregon that has restrictive licensing. They don't have a license count, but they've kept the zoning so tight that there's really never going to be any more than the 7 stores that operate there. So that one also, and the location for that is a great big site, full acre, half acre of parking, 5,000 square foot facility. We really want to invest in that and make it a flagship for our brand and for the area. So with that one, bigger store, bigger build out, we're going to raise about $2.1 million for that. Looking at that as a $4 million pre-money valuation on that one.
Great. And are these are both? There's no real estate in these?
You know, there can be, yes,
Okay.
yep. It's not required. We actually have an option on the property in Portland. You know, we currently have it locked down in a 15-year lease with that option, so we could convert that and bring that into the deal if that worked for somebody.
Got it. And so this money is going towards not so much buying, but it's going towards leasing and building out, and also hiring staff and all of that.
Yeah.
Great. And now, is any of this money that you're raising going into your existing locations?
You know, there is definitely an opportunity for that. You know, we are maxing out the Berkeley store just in terms of the amount of people we can fit in the square footage there.
Good problems.
I know, right? I know. So on a per square footage basis, we're killing it, but we want more of those square feet. You know, so we actually do have a whole very comprehensive remodel all designed for that facility that would take it from 1 story to 2, double the square footage, and do all that while still keeping the operation running every single day. So we've got a great plan there. That's roughly a $1 million project too, and yeah, definitely interested in discussing that raise with people and actually getting into the mothership, the oldest dispensary in America, BPG.
That's great. And then can you just speak a little bit about the structure of your company? So is it that people are, so when people invest in this, they're investing in the specific projects independently as separate entities that utilize the BPG name? And now, is there a holding company above all of that? And how do all the entities relate?
Right. Yeah. So it is basically, like you said, more or less siloed projects. You know, particularly with dealing with different states and stuff. We are dealing with 3 states now. So yeah, definitely siloed projects there. And right now, you know, we also have our adult use brand that we debuted in Nevada, New Leaf, that we're wrapping into these new projects too, using that brand. But so you know, basically the independent entities are, you know, paying some corporate allocations to the holding company that's really, you know, the mastermind behind it all, just to kind of take care of that overhead, so each dispensary doesn't have to have its own finance department, own marketing director, things like that.
Right,
you know, so.
That makes sense. So the investors are able, and the company itself is able to benefit from the economies of scale, but each project is isolated.
Yeah, exactly. So trying to get those benefits without, you know, linking everything together and having it all go down if something went wrong.
And also regulatory reasons for that too, because then you'd have to have every investor in one follow all the rules of all the things together. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, you know how many times we get fingerprinted in Nevada? It's like every month. With all the licenses we have, there's always more fingerprinting, and that's a pain in the ass.
Got it. Well, thanks for joining me. What else? Any last comments about you know, what's happening in California, this opportunity while we're here?
Yeah, you know, I would just say that I think California is going to be the dream market that we all think it can be. I do think that it is going to be a rocky road at first, and so if I was thinking about how I deploy my money in California, I would want to go with proven operators, people with a track record of success that have done this before and done it many times, and so that's what I think you need here.
That you've certainly done. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Troy.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, buddy.